Imagine building a global restaurant empire because you wanted to meet women. That's exactly how TGI Fridays began. In 1965, Manhattan, 28-year-old Alan Stillman wasn't a businessman. He was a perfume salesman. And his motivation? His block was full of single flight attendants heading to LaGuardia, but the bars? Full of men. So he took out a $5,000 loan from his mom and bought a grimy bar on 63rd and 1st. He didn't just renovate, he reinvented. Tiffany lamps, bent wood chairs, striped awnings, cocktails. Suddenly, bar culture was co-ed, stylish, and wildly popular. He named it Thank God It's Friday. In 1 year, it pulled in $1 million. It wasn't just a bar, it was the social scene. So much so, it became the backdrop for the Tom Cruise movie Cocktail. Fridays had cracked the code. Energy, charm, and cocktails that said, you made it through the week, celebrate. But what made it revolutionary wasn't just the design or the drinks, it was the timing. The 1960s were a cultural reset in America. Women were entering the workforce in record numbers. Traditional gender roles were shifting. Stillman had unknowingly created the first mainstream singles bar in the U.S. It wasn't a club, it wasn't a pub, it was a social experiment in real time. Every night, it felt like something could happen. You weren't just going out, you were entering a story. People came to mingle, flirt, and feel alive. The buzz around Fridays turned it into a phenomenon. Lines wrapped around the block. Media buzzed about the new social hotspot. Stillman didn't realize it at the time, but he wasn't just launching a bar. He was launching a cultural movement. A movement that would become a brand, and a brand that would eventually become a monster. And like all monsters, it would eventually eat itself. Stillman's little hotspot exploded in popularity, and when restaurateur James Robinson suggested franchising the idea, Stillman said yes. First stop, Memphis, then Nashville. The vibe translated beautifully, but it was Daniel Scroggins who truly scaled the magic, bringing Fridays to the suburbs, making it family-friendly while keeping its edge. And in 1975, corporate America took notice. Carlson Companies, already deep in hospitality, bought the chain and plotted a nationwide takeover. By the 1980s, Fridays was everywhere, over 80 locations. And here's the kicker. Each location earned more per square foot than McDonald's. Think about that. A sit-down restaurant beating the fast food king. Fridays had mastered the art of being fun. Bold decor, flair-filled uniforms, loud, energetic rooms. A menu that never took itself too seriously. It was dining, reimagined, and Carlson took it even further. But franchising the vibe wasn't just about expansion, it was about replication. And that's tricky when your core product is atmosphere. Stillman's original bar had been a spontaneous cultural moment. How do you bottle that and ship it to Ohio, to Arizona, to Tokyo? Carlson's answer was consistency. Every location had the same wild antiques, the same bright red branding, the same potato skins. It was fun in a box. And for a while, it worked. People loved the predictability. You knew what you were getting, whether you were in Dallas or Detroit. Still, something was shifting. As more Fridays popped up, some critics argued it was losing its spark. Too corporate, too formulaic. But for Carlson, it didn't matter. The numbers were up, the expansion was global, and the brand was booming. They bet big on Fridays. And for 2 decades, that bet paid off. But eventually, the shine would wear off. Because when fun becomes formula, it stops feeling fun. By the 1990s and early 2000s, Fridays wasn't just a restaurant. It was a ritual. Birthdays, first dates, office drinks. You celebrated at Fridays. It had over 900 locations worldwide, $2 billion in sales, 70,000 employees, and an instantly recognizable brand. They even branched out Friday's Front Row Sports Grill, frozen apps in grocery stores, cocktail mixers for sale. Fridays was becoming a lifestyle. The menus were wild, the walls were wilder. Antiques, sports memorabilia, quirky signs. No two Fridays looked exactly the same, and that was the point. It felt local, even if it wasn't. By this point, TGI Fridays had transcended food. It was part of pop culture. Sitcoms referenced it. Music videos shot in it. It was where the suburban dream met the nightlife aesthetic, loud, playful, and unapologetically American. Its menu offered everything to everyone. Burgers, ribs, pasta, tacos, and their legendary Jack Daniel's glazed steaks. And drinks? Oh, the drinks. Colorful, theatrical, garnished within an inch of their lives. You didn't sip at Fridays, you celebrated. Even employees were characters. Servers wore suspenders and buttons, each with a touch of personality. They didn't just bring food, they brought flair, literally. It made Fridays feel alive. Even when the food was average, parents could relax, kids could play, young adults could pre-game, and executives could drop by for post-work drinks. Somehow, Fridays belonged to everyone. It was a neutral party zone, fun for all, with no dress code. But the thing about peaks, you only realize it's a peak when you're already heading downhill. Carlson wanted to keep Fridays fresh, so they tried to modernize. Sleek walls, neutral colors, a new logo, and just like that, the vibe was gone. Customers walked in expecting nostalgia. They got gray floors, LED lights, and menus that felt focus group to death. The signature charm, gone. The personality, flattened. By 2013, they tried pivoting again, bringing in TV personality John Taffer and attempting a throwback aesthetic, but it didn't land. The damage was done. Fridays had lost what made it special, and when Carlson saw the writing on the wall, they sold it in 2014 for $800 million. Two private equity firms took over, Sentinel Capital and Tri-Artisan. The issue wasn't just the new look. It was that the redesign tried to speak to everyone and ended up connecting with no one. The Gen Z crowd thought it was outdated. Millennials saw through the nostalgia grab. Boomers missed the original cozy pub feel. The interiors felt sterile. The menus ballooned into indecision. And with rising prices and declining portions, the value proposition was lost. Fridays was no longer fun. It was a chore. And while the new owners were promising innovation, all customers saw were cut corners, lower food quality, less staff, disconnected branding. In trying to chase the modern casual dining crowd, they forgot their core identity, a place to unwind and feel something. The rebrand didn't just fail, it confused everyone. Fridays wasn't hip, classic, or quirky anymore. It was just there. And being forgettable in the restaurant world, that's deadly. The new owners did what private equity often does, cut costs and cash out. They sold off most of the company-owned locations for $450 million. Sure, it was quick money, but now Fridays didn't own the buildings, didn't control the experience, and didn't have assets to fall back on. They tested weird concepts, including minimalist locations and ghost kitchens that sold sushi. Yes, sushi from a place famous for burgers and wings. They tried to take Fridays public again. That failed. Innovation stalled, quality dropped, and slowly locations started disappearing. Private equity has one goal: short-term returns. And that's not inherently evil. But it's dangerous when applied to a brand built on long-term connection. TGI Fridays was never just about food margins. It was about loyalty. The shift to franchise-heavy operations meant inconsistency exploded. Some locations still had the old charm. Others looked like fast food with table service. The customer experience became a gamble. Meanwhile, marketing flopped. No clear message, no standout campaign, no emotional hook. While competitors like Chili's embraced ironic self-awareness and Olive Garden leaned into family-driven comfort food, Fridays floundered. And internally, staffing cuts led to morale dips. You can't sell joy if your employees are burned out. Customers felt it. Reviews turned negative. And the spiral began. Then came the storm that no restaurant chain could outrun. In 2019, Fridays was already losing money. Then COVID hit. By 2020, 20% of their restaurants had shut down permanently. Franchisees delayed reopening until 2023. Some never came back. U.S. sales dropped to $728 million. International branches filed for bankruptcy, and by late 2024, Fridays had just $6 million in cash and over $37 million in debt. On November 2, 2024, TGI Fridays filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. From 600-plus U.S. stores to just 63, the pandemic exposed what was already broken. Supply chains failed, delivery systems were underdeveloped, tech investments had been neglected, and consumer habits shifted permanently. People got used to better food at home, or they chose local spots with tighter menus and real stories. Fridays had neither. To make matters worse, ghost kitchens, once seen as a savior, became a brand killer. Sushi from Fridays confused people, it diluted trust, and the final product often disappointed. Even curbside couldn't save them. Their food wasn't built to travel. Their brand wasn't built for isolation, and their vibe, their biggest asset, couldn't be delivered in a to-go box. Fridays hadn't just failed to evolve, they had failed to prepare, and by the time they realized it, customers had already moved on. In early 2025, former CEO Ray Blanchett stepped in to rescue what was left through his firm, Sugarloaf Hospitality, and while he has big plans, mostly international, the U.S. division is fading. Why did TGI Fridays fail? Not because people stopped loving fun, not because cocktails went out of style, but because Fridays forgot who it was. It chased trends, not authenticity. It sold off its soul to franchises. And when hard times came, from the 2008 recession to the pandemic, it had nothing to fall back on. Today, TGI Fridays is a cautionary tale, a reminder that vibes can't be manufactured, they're nurtured, protected. And when you sell them off, one piece at a time, eventually there's nothing left. Fridays could still make a comeback, overseas maybe, in niche cities perhaps, but in the hearts of American diners, that's a harder battle. Because when a brand becomes generic, faceless, and overpriced, you're not just competing with other chains, you're competing with memories. And Friday's best memories were made in the 90s. Maybe that's where it belongs now, not in the future of dining, but in the scrapbook of American culture. A nostalgic footnote, one last cheer for potato skins, flair, and Jack Daniel's glazed anything, and maybe, just maybe, a quiet goodbye. Let's be honest, this isn't just the story of a restaurant. Fridays was the backdrop to birthdays, awkward first dates, after-work drinks, and family reunions. For many of us, it was the first place we felt like grown-ups. Ordering that colorful cocktail or splitting potato skins with friends. So yes, it's upsetting to talk about the downfall of a brand like TGI Fridays, because it's not just another struggling chain, it's a part of our personal history. And while it's true that Fridays has been struggling for a long time, long before the headlines or the bankruptcy filing, there's still something sad about watching it fade. Because deep down, we all want those places to still be there, to still have flair, to still feel like Fridays. Maybe one day someone will bring it back, not as a business model, but as a feeling. Until then, we'll always have the memories. Now, if you enjoyed this video, do consider subscribing if you want to see more like it.